Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the Pink Cloud Frequency podcast, an alcohol-free podcast for women. I am your host, Brianna Wynn. Thank you for joining me. So today, I initially had one idea for an episode I wanted to record, but life had other plans. So I just hung up the phone with my brother. It's a little after 9 a.m. here in Massachusetts, and he called me to discuss his morning. So he's hungover from last night, and his morning felt challenging due to the frustrations he experienced while trying to get my nephew to school. And of course, he feels like shit physically and mentally, which exacerbates all of those frustrations. So today I felt like, why not talk about why alcohol makes everything feel bigger than it usually is? Is what we're dealing with, are those problems, are they mountains or are they molehills, right? So he called me to, just to kind of get it all out. And I totally felt for him and I felt what he was going through. And I know as a mom trying to get my son out the door every day, how frustrating that can be. But then what I also felt was the intensity of his emotions, of what he was going through. And I felt, I just felt compassion for him because he's a great dad and I know that he loves his children and I know that it's hard, but I also know, from where I'm at today that everything he's feeling is genuinely exacerbated by alcohol, right? So one of the biggest reasons that happens is referred to as alcohol myopia, whereby alcohol narrows our attention, right? So it shrinks our mental field of view, so to speak. So whatever we're dealing with right now feels like the entire reality. So if you're rushing out of the house, you're trying to drop, your child off to school, your children, and maybe they haven't eaten their breakfast or they're playing video games or they didn't make their bed or brush their teeth or whatever the case is, that one little problem feels more overwhelming than it actually is. And that one molehill we perceive to be a mountain, right? And maybe we're late to work and our boss sends us an email and we ruminate on that email for our entire day, which then distracts us from performing at our peak for the whole day, right? And that's probably what my brother's going to go through today is he's going to take that situation that happened to him this morning with my nephew. And now he's going to go to work from, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And the whole time, not the whole time, but probably most of the time, he's going to still be consumed with that situation and all of the other emotions brought on by that situation. And then those negative emotions turning into other negative emotions with other parts of his day that are now spilling over, right? So when we remove alcohol from our lives, we don't have alcohol myopia anymore. Our attention, our field of vision, it's no longer narrow. So our focus is larger than the problem. We can accurately view, what's in front of us, what's behind us, what's around us, and be able to assess those situations or issues for what they actually are, right? An email's an email. A conversation is a conversation. Our child doing or not doing something, that's all it is. It's nothing more. It's nothing less, but we are able to see it exactly as it is. And that's super important, right? Another reason our problems end up feeling bigger than they really are is our sleep disruption. So alcohol can disrupt our REM sleep, which is the rapid eye movement sleep. That's that deep, deep restorative sleep. And it affects our sleep patterns. So less quality sleep tends to amplify emotional reactivity and reduce our coping bandwidth, right? So if we don't get a good restful sleep, now we're less resilient. And if we're less resilient to stress, every single situation feels huge, right? Now, when we remove alcohol and we have a very restful sleep, which we don't even always realize. And that's the crazy part. I remember when I drank, I mean, I thought I slept good. Like, yeah, some nights here and there, I'd be like, oh, I slept like shit, or maybe I passed out on the couch or something like that. But for the most part, I felt like I slept good. It wasn't until I removed alcohol that I'm like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe I've been missing out on this for, you know, almost 25 years at this point. It's crazy. It's just, you can even in the times where maybe for some reason you do only sleep like 4 or 5 hours, maybe you have a flight to catch, something like that. But even in those times, like the sleep you do get is just so much better quality that you're still able to function throughout your day, you know? Um, and now they have like the rings, the certain things that you can buy to be able to track your sleep. So I kind of want to get one just to see, maybe there's other things, my food intake at certain points of the day. I'm curious on how that affects my sleep or getting up and going to the bathroom and stuff like that. But again, when you remove alcohol from your life, your sleep is so much better. It's such good quality. It's so restorative. You can go into that deep sleep, into that REM sleep. And what that does for you is it builds up your resiliency physically, mentally, emotionally. And now you're able to better manage any problem, all of your problems, right? Anything, maybe it's not a problem. And, you know, whatever it is, you're better able to manage it. Maybe you were viewing it as a problem and it's not. And that's the whole point. You're looking at something as a mountain, but it's really a molehill. Now you can better manage that when you get a good night's rest. And one of the last reasons I'll mention is with, why alcohol makes our problems feel bigger than they are the habit loops that we've created, whether consciously or subconsciously. And for most of us, it is subconscious. So what is the definition of a habit? In psychology, it's an automatic reaction to a specific situation. So every time we use alcohol to cope with a stressful situation, we are then creating a habit loop for ourselves, right? So if we had a bad day at work, we grab a drink. If we just got home from a parent-teacher conference and maybe it didn't go as well as expected, now we have a drink. Maybe we visit a family member in the hospital and we go and stop on our way home to go grab a drink. Every time we do that, we have now associated alcohol as the problem solver in our lives, right? And whenever we do that, it's like the problem feels like it goes away, right? Um, our emotions don't feel as overwhelming as they did before we had that drink. So, yeah, in some ways, grabbing a drink, it's like it seems like the rational thing to do because we do feel like we got a solution to our problem in that moment. But the reality is our problems are still there. They don't go away. Maybe in that moment we don't feel them as drastically, but they're very much still there. So whether we want to ignore them or diminish them, we can do that, but they're still there and we need to deal with them. And not only that, but what happened when it's 8 a.m, right? My brother's on his way to work, get my nephew out the door. What happens when it's 8 a.m? You can't go reach for a glass of wine. He can't go have, a shot of Jameson or whatever whiskey he drinks, or you know what I'm saying? You can't do that. You're on your way to work, you're driving in a vehicle, you're going to work a 12-hour day. So, how do you deal with the problem in that moment or the frustration in that moment when you don't have alcohol to cope? And that's what happens, right? We're just so used to just moving subconsciously throughout life with all of these habits that we've created and we don't even realize it. But once we remove alcohol, we create new habits and better coping mechanisms, right? We can take a walk. We can go to the gym. Maybe we call a friend. Maybe, maybe it's nighttime. Maybe we jump in the shower or read a book or make a hot cocoa or a tea or something warm and soothing. Maybe we, go get our nails done or our hair done or go to the spa and I know those aren't things that we can do every single day, but when you start to set your life up differently, like your life is going to look different without alcohol, obviously. So those day-to-day things, your calendar, that's going to look different. So you build these things into it. It's sort of like you're building up the resiliency before negative situations even happen, right? But the point is that in these moments, you're better able to overcome the same little frustrations that used to be the precursor for our entire day. So that same problem that set our entire day in motion, causing us to feel frustrated or angry or sad on repeat, now we can view the situation for what it is, and then we can process our emotions accordingly. So it's like the email that you got from your boss. It's not an attack, right? It's feedback. It's criticism. That's all it is. No big deal. And if you and I was listening to something the other day and it was so funny. It's like if you don't want to be criticized, don't do anything, right? If you think you can go through a life without criticism, that's because you're doing nothing, you're producing nothing, you're saying nothing, you're being nothing. That's the only way you can escape criticism. So let's look at things for what they actually are, right? Everything isn't an attack. Sometimes it's constructive criticism, it's feedback, it's an opportunity to do better, to be better, right? If you get a bill in the mail and you feel like, how are you going to pay it? Oh my gosh, it's like, it feels hard. I know the feeling. I'm a single mother. I know the feeling. But that's not a moral failure, right? It doesn't define you. It doesn't define your future. It's a math problem that you have the opportunity to figure out right now. And if you go and you drink, it's only going to make that math problem 10 times harder to solve because now you're adding on zeros, right? Now you're buying things and going places and spending money you don't need to spend, and then all the reality that bill's still sitting there waiting for you. It's still got to get paid. That college tuition, the sports tuition, all those things have to get paid, right? Whether you drink or you don't. So now, when we remove alcohol, we can view it for what it actually is. Maybe we don't have all the money in this moment to do it, but guess what? We can call and we can set up a payment plan, right? Or maybe we call on some other people we know and maybe you have to borrow money. Whatever the case is, you figure out a way to solve that problem, right? You're not a failure. You're figuring it out. And likewise, let's say, you had an argument with your spouse or your child and it feels like the end and it just can feel so debilitating. And now we realize when we remove alcohol, it's not the end of the relationship, right? It's just a conversation. It's an opportunity to repair, to dig a little bit deeper into our emotions. Why did we feel this way? Or why did we say that or do that? And now we get to talk about it openly and, more importantly, be honest about it and be authentic about it and figure out how we move forward from here. But we don't have to stay stuck there, right? So it's not really about stress. It's how we appraise that stressful event. right? And how we view the event and how we call on the resources we have both internally and externally to be able to deal with that event. That's what matters. So your accurate field of view, your healthy coping mechanisms, your better sleep, your clarity, your energy in your sobriety, all of those things rise so that the same problem you had or have is less catastrophic, right? The problems don't just go away. Life is lifing. Every single day there's something, but you get to choose how you respond to that. You get to choose how to move forward and how you take that problem and how you apply it to your life, right? Does that problem have meaning? What does it say about you? Does it say anything about you? Are you taking that problem and creating a story about yourself that's not true because of just one thing that you had to deal with? No, we don't do that, right? We stop reacting to issues that we thought were loud. They're really just quiet, and we realize that. We stop creating mountains out of molehills. We allow our body to identify something, process something, and solve something. We don't have to exacerbate our pain or our frustrations or our sadness. We feel it and we move on. And that, to me, that is absolutely one of the best parts of sobriety, in my opinion, because I used to be such a complainer. Every little thing would set me off. It's like something someone said, that something they did, something they didn't do. I would just stay stuck there. And I would sometimes like physically feel myself just like reading something and like feeling the redness in my face, right? Those sensations. I would feel hot and heavy. And it's like, for what, right? That really takes a toll on you physically if you go through that enough times. That puts stress on your body and that starts coming out in other ways. So you may not realize it, but everything is connected in our bodies. It's all connected, right? So now I don't have to stay stuck in those places anymore. My emotions and your emotions, it's like they're like a river, and it's a flowing river. Things are meant to be felt and then you move on. Problems come and then you manage them. And that's just a part of life. And it doesn't always seem that way when you're in the thick of it, but if you give yourself enough time to get out of it and to start handling things better, more rationally, more maturely, and calling on the resources that you do have and employing those healthy mechanisms, all of that starts to become a new way of life for you. And that's one of the best parts of an alcohol-free lifestyle that I personally love. So my invitation to you today is write down one problem that would have sent you into a tailspin when you were still drinking. Was that problem actually a mountain, or was that problem just a molehill? And how would you have dealt with that problem when you still drank? And how are you dealing with that problem today? So that's one of the reasons why we continue on this path of sobriety, because life is not only better, but because it's more manageable. So as I always say, keep going, whether you're on day 1 or 100 or 1,000, keep going. It's so worth it. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a 5-star review, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.